Here at Westeros, there are many ways to get a man to reveal information to you. As you'll see on tonight's episode, one of those ways is torture. Be it the rack, being chained to a wall for days on end, flogging. I've even known men to have tongues ripped out of their own heads. Of course, there are several men here on the wall who bear that particular disfigurement, but it has nothing to do with torture, no. They were simply triple dire wolf dared to stick their tongues to a flagpole. This is Stark Raving! Welcome back, my friends. I am Lord Stark, and the Ravens are in with the latest gossip from Westeros. I call this latest series of events the Garden of Bones. Things start out innocently enough, with a good old-fashioned fart joke.
Oh, you're a right little prick.
Things turn serious when Robb's dire wolf shows up to rip the soldiers' faces off. Robb leads a nighttime raid that decimates another of the Lannisters' encampments. Robb admonishes his generals for wanting to torture information from their prisoners, but stops to help a comely lass saw off the gangrenous leg of one of the enemy soldiers. Later, he chats her up and asks her name. It's Talisa, but she's none too pleased with Robb's war.
They killed my father.
That boy did?
The family he fights for.
Do you think he's friends with King Joffrey?
Robb's successes continue to earn the ire of the Lannisters, and King Joffrey takes his rage out on Sansa, threatening to murder her, but ultimately having her beat up for his own pleasure.
God, I hate that little shit.
He orders her flogged, but it's stopped by Tyrion, who berates his nephew for his cruelty. He escorts Sansa out. Tyrion tries to calm Joffrey down with sex, but he forces the hookers to beat each other for his own sadistic enjoyment.
Wow! Who'd have thought that inbreeding in a royal family could produce insanity in a king? I mean, it's not bad enough that he's a cowardly little fart, but he also has to be a sociopath? God, I just really hate that little shit.
Tyrion receives orders from his cousin. Cersei has ordered Pycelle's release. He quickly realizes his cousin Lancel is sleeping with the queen and forces him to act as his spy, lest Joffrey or Tywin find out about the affair. Smug in his newest victory, he vows to release Pycelle, though the Maester will not be allowed back on the council. In Essos, another of Dany's scouts returns. He's brought a welcome from the nearby city of Karth, though if they march for it and are refused, they will add to the Garden of Bones that surrounds the city. They arrive and are met at the gates by the merchants who control the city, the Council of 13. However, they demand to see her dragons before allowing her people entry. When she balks, they begin to close the gates on her until she speaks up.
We will lay waste to armies and burn cities to the ground. Turn us away, and we will burn you first.
This brings out Xaro, who takes a blood oath for the Dothraki, earning them a place in the city. Arya and the rest of the Night's Watch prisoners arrive at a camp overseen by the Mountain, Gregor Clegane.
The Mountain is renowned throughout Westeros as one of its fiercest and most cruel warriors. In fact, many a fledgling knight patterns himself after Gregor Clegane. Before going into battle, he asks himself, what would the Mountain do?
Every night, Arya repeats to herself the names of those who killed her father, as the prisoners are tortured for information about the Lannister enemies. Just as Gendry is about to be tortured, Tywin Lannister arrives and decides to put the prisoners to work in his understaffed camps.
This one's a girl, you idiot. Dressed as a boy.
Bring the girl. I need a new cupbearer, my lord.
Lord Baelish arrives at Renly's camp and proceeds to annoy just about everyone there.
I don't like you, Lord Baelish.
The whole notion of marriage seems to confuse you, so allow me to explain. My husband is my king, and my king is my husband.
After reuniting with his beloved Catelyn, he makes a play for her affections but is rejected. He then returns Ned's remains to her.
A present? For me? Oh, gosh, I love getting things. Oh, is it a new dress? Oh, maybe a bit of jewelry. I love jewelry. Let me... well, it's very nice, but I already have a Sean Bean. And one that's fully assembled, too.
before offering a trade behind Robb's back. Jaime Lannister for Arya and Sansa. Later, Catelyn rides with Renly for a meeting between the Baratheon brothers. Stannis offers Renly a place on his council if he surrenders his forces to him, but it looks like it's a no-go.
Would you believe I loved him once?
Stannis then orders Davos to take Melisandre to shore, and in a tunnel leading to Renly's camp, she births a demon to attack them.
Trust me, I'm doing you a favor by not showing you the pregnant woman with the undulating belly giving birth to a smoke demon. Things get a bit Cronenberg for my tastes. Now that the shock has worn off, let's take a closer look at these events.
It was a relief that after 3 shows where we only touched on them briefly, finally we get some meaty scenes for Daenerys and Robb. Robb's in love, and Dany's found a new home for her people, although I wonder how much of that encounter was staged for her benefit. This should be a different kind of court than the one she's held with the Dothraki, and it'll be interesting to see how she adapts to it. With these characters getting stories, it finally feels like the plot is rolling this season. This episode crossed a lot of lines. Joffrey, for instance, went from being merely an unlikable bully and coward to diabolical monster. His torture of Sansa and the prostitutes make me wonder, can a villain be too evil? At what point do we stop hating this character and simply stop watching as he continues his violations? This, of course, plays perfectly into my next point, the birthing scene at the end of the episode. It was a little too intense for my tastes. Some might be okay with it, but I felt it was more than I was prepared to see on this show. Unlike the gross-outs of the second episode, I felt this hurt the show by putting me off what I was watching. Hopefully we don't see demon births every time Stannis attacks a town. Stannis himself had some good scenes as he asks Davos to break the same laws that he once punished Davos for breaking, also he can gain an advantage over his brother. Tyrion had 2 real scenes. The second, and by far worse, was where he outsmarts his dimwit cousin. Though Dinklage continues to deliver a bravura performance, these scenes are getting a bit overdone. I feel like someone needs to jump out and say, ta-da, after each time he outsmarts someone. He needs a challenge, and soon. And Cousin Lancel was a poor substitute for the Queen, but I suppose it was her turn to take an episode off. His far better scene was where he confronts Joffrey, followed by his honest appraisal of Sansa. Here we get a true shot of his character as he stands up to a bully and actually show admiration for someone besides himself. Arya's stuff was so-so. I like how she's clinging to her revenge in this desperate situation, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But there's only so much doe-eyed shock I can take from Maisie Williams. A few more facial expressions would be appreciated. Renly and Marjorie didn't bring much to the show this week, nor did any of their camp outside of Catelyn. The stuff between her and Littlefinger was good, though. His desperation for her shines through, but is overshadowed by her fury over his part in her husband's death. She's the one person he can't charm or successfully lie to.
Still, aside from that last scene, I liked what I saw. Some characters got long overdue screen time, the war between the Baratheons took its next step, and Arya's story had an unexpected twist. I give the Garden of Bones 4 severed heads of Sean Bean out of 5. As for this week's question, Harmonica J asked, why were you sent to the wall? Well, obviously as nobility, I came here by choice. You see, I had a dark secret to protect. I was born with a terrible speech impediment. No matter how hard I try, I simply couldn't pronounce the Queen's name. Cersei? 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 Rather than risk execution for mispronouncing her name, shortly after she married King Robert, I resigned myself to life on the wall. If only I could pronounce Cersei, but I can't. Remember, if you have a question about Westeros, leave it in the comments section below in quotation marks. One question will be chosen and answered on next week's show. Until then, I am Lord Stark, and this is Stark Raving!